She is not just a housekeeper. She is my wife.
The slap landed so hard, Elena tasted blood before she understood what had happened. "Thief!" Vanessa Whitmore hissed, pointing at the diamond necklace glittering near Elena's shoes. "I knew you were filthy, but I didn't know you were stupid." The ballroom went silent, and 50 wealthy strangers turned to stare at the housekeeper kneeling on marble with a split lip and someone else's diamonds at her feet. If stories like this hit you right in the chest, subscribe, like the video, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because this one doesn't let go once it starts. Elena didn't reach for the necklace. That was the first thing everyone noticed. She just stayed frozen, one hand on the floor, the other pressed against her burning cheek, while the chandelier light bounced off the stones like little knives. Around her, glasses stopped halfway to mouths, phones lifted. A violinist in the corner lowered his bow. Vanessa stepped closer in a silver gown that cost more than Elena would make in 3 years. "Go on," she said loudly, her smile perfect and poisonous. "Pick it up. That's what you wanted, right?" "I didn't take it," Elena said. Her voice came out smaller than she meant. Vivian Whitmore, the family matriarch, gave a cold laugh from beside the grand staircase. "Of course you didn't. Poor girls never steal. They just admire things until temptation does the work for them." A few guests laughed, not many, just enough to make it worse. Elena slowly stood, her knees trembling under her plain black uniform. She had spent the last hour carrying trays through this engagement party, while Vanessa barked orders and corrected the angle of folded napkins no one would remember. She had stayed invisible the way rich people liked their help to be. Quiet, useful, replaceable. Now every eye in the room was on her. Arthur Whitmore tightened his jaw and said, "Search her." Elena's stomach dropped. "Sir, please," she whispered. "I didn't take anything." Nolan, Arthur's son, already half drunk, strode over and yanked open the pocket of her apron. Lipstick, a grocery list, a pill bottle. He held up the medicine and smirked. "What's this? More stolen property?" "That's for my brother." "Then maybe your brother should learn not to live off honest people." The cruelty of it hit harder than the slap. Elena reached for the pill bottle, but Nolan tossed it to the floor. It skidded under a chair. She almost lunged after it. Almost. But then she saw Tomas in her mind, 14 years old and too thin, trying to grin through pain every time he said he was fine. Those pills mattered. Her job mattered. One wrong move, and both were gone. Vanessa saw the panic in her eyes and smiled wider. "There," she said. "That look. Guilty." "I said I didn't take it." "Then why were you near my dressing room?" "Because you rang the bell 3 times for sparkling water." That drew a few awkward looks from the guests. Vanessa's expression tightened. "Don't get clever with me." From the edge of the room, Celeste Whitmore folded her arms and shook her head with fake sadness. "This is why charity is wasted on some people. You give them shelter, wages, leftovers to take home, and they still bite the hand feeding them." Shelter. Elena wanted to laugh in her face. The tiny maid's room above the garage had a leaking ceiling, no heat after midnight, and a window nailed half shut. The wages barely covered Tomas's medication and the rent on the little apartment where he stayed with their neighbor during the weeks Elena had to sleep at the estate. The Whitmores called it generosity because it sounded cleaner than exploitation. Vivian walked down the staircase one measured step at a time until she stood inches away. "Take off your shoes." Elena stared at her. "What?"
Your shoes. Unless diamonds have started crawling into servants' pockets by themselves. The room held its breath. Humiliation had a smell. Perfume, old money, and people waiting for entertainment. Elena bent down with shaky fingers and removed her shoes. Then Nolan snatched her small work bag from a side table and dumped it onto the marble. Tampons, bus receipts, a wrapped sandwich. A faded photo of Elena and Tomas at the beach years ago, both sunburned and laughing, their mother still alive behind the camera. Vanessa nudged the photo with the tip of her heel. Cute. Poverty with a memory. Elena swallowed hard. Then the ring fell out. Small, gold, scratched with wear. The inscription caught the light for a second before Vivian picked it up between two fingers like it was contaminated. Well, Vivian said, how touching. She stole herself a wedding band, too. Elena's heart stopped. Give that back, she said, and for the first time that night, there was steel in her voice. Vanessa's head tilted. Oh, so this matters. She plucked the ring from Vivian's hand and read the inside. Her brows lifted. A.V. to E. Until my last breath. The entire room changed. Not because they understood it. Because Elena did. All at once, the ballroom, the laughter, the necklace, the marble under her feet, it all slipped behind the memory of a courthouse on a rainy Tuesday. Adrian's hands shaking slightly as he slid that ring onto her finger.
His smile, soft and almost disbelieving, like he couldn't believe something good had chosen him, too. You still have time to run, he had whispered. Elena, fighting tears, had answered, Too late. I already decided I'm the reckless one in this marriage. He had laughed then, really laughed, the kind that made his eyes crease and his shoulders loosen. An hour later, he bought her coffee from a cart outside and kissed her under a broken umbrella while cars hissed through rainwater. 3 days after that, she vanished from his life. And now his name was in Vanessa Whitmore's hand. Vanessa looked up slowly. Who is Adrian Vale? Elena said nothing. Nolan gave a nasty grin. Don't tell me our maid invented a billionaire husband. That earned the room its loudest laugh yet. Because everyone in that ballroom knew Adrian Vale. The youngest self-made billionaire in the country. Ruthless in business, private in public. The man whose arrival tonight was supposed to save the Whitmores from the financial disaster they had spent a year hiding behind charity galas and imported flowers. Vanessa had told everyone he was interested in partnering with the family. Some whispered she expected more than a partnership. Vanessa held up the ring. Did you buy this from a street vendor, Elena? Was pretending to be loved cheaper than therapy? Elena's vision blurred. Please, she said quietly. Just give it back. Vivian's face hardened. No, not until the police arrive. At that, a real tremor passed through Elena. If she got arrested, Tomas would be alone. If she lost this job before the hospital deposit was paid on Friday, his surgery would be delayed again. Another month, maybe more. He had already learned how to hide pain so well that it terrified her. She looked around the room, desperate, humiliated, cornered. And then the butler at the front entrance straightened suddenly. The double doors opened. Mr. Adrian Vale, he announced. The world did not stop. It sharpened. Every spine in the ballroom went straight. Vanessa's whole face changed. Cruelty wiped off in one instant and replaced with practiced elegance. Nolan stumbled backward and buttoned his jacket. Vivian passed Elena's ring to Celeste and lifted her chin as if nothing ugly had happened here at all. Elena couldn't breathe. He stepped in, wearing a black coat over a charcoal suit, rain still dark on his shoulders. Two security men followed several steps behind him, but the room belonged to Adrian without help. Not because he was loud, because he wasn't. Power sat on him like second skin. He took 3 steps. Then he saw her. Not the guests, not the chandelier, not Vanessa gliding forward with a smile she had rehearsed in mirrors. Her. Barefoot on the marble, blood on her lip, uniform wrinkled, eyes shining with the kind of hurt that comes after someone has swallowed too much pride for too long. Adrian stopped moving. Vanessa reached him first. "Mr. Vale, welcome. I'm so sorry for the disturbance. One of the staff—" "Who touched her?" He didn't look at Vanessa when he said it. He was staring at Elena so intensely it felt almost painful. No one answered. His gaze dropped to the ring in Celeste's hand. Adrian walked toward it, slow and terrifying, took it from her fingers, and wiped a smear of Elena's blood off the gold with his thumb. Then he looked up. "You made my wife kneel," he said. It wasn't shouted. That made it worse. Gasps cut through the ballroom so sharply they almost sounded like one voice. A glass slipped somewhere and shattered. Vanessa's smile vanished like a light going out. Arthur Whitmore stepped forward immediately. "Mr. Vale, I believe there has been some misunderstanding." Adrian turned his head just enough to silence him. "Did I sound confused?" Elena still hadn't moved. Wife. He had said it in front of everyone. Not hidden, not whispered, not denied. A year of pain rose in her throat so fast she thought she might choke on it. Adrian came to stand directly in front of her. Up close, he looked different. Harder, thinner through the face. There was a scar near his temple she had never seen before. But his eyes were the same. Dark, restless, and right now, filled with a kind of anger so controlled it was more dangerous than shouting. "Lena," he said softly. No one else had ever called her that. Her mouth trembled before she forced the words out. "Your mother told me you agreed." The anger in his expression broke for one raw second and became shock. "What?" "She said if I stayed, you'd bury my brother. She said I was the kind of mistake powerful men erased." The room went dead still. Adrian took off his coat and draped it over her shoulders with careful hands, like she might break if he moved too fast. "I never sent anyone to you." Elena let out a laugh that sounded too close to crying. "I know that now." Vanessa recovered first. "This is absurd." Adrian didn't even glance her way. "Lock the doors." His security team moved instantly. Arthur bristled. "You cannot come into my home and—" "I own your debt," Adrian said flatly. "Tonight I came to discuss whether your company survived the quarter. Now I'm deciding whether your family survives the hour." That hit, because it was true. Everyone important in the city knew Whitmore Holdings was bleeding cash under the table while pretending to expand in public. Adrian's investment was supposed to be salvation. Without it, they were finished. Vivian stepped forward with her hands carefully folded, her voice suddenly coated in grace. "Mr. Vale, if this young woman has misrepresented herself to you, then I'm afraid you've been deceived. We took her in out of pity. She never mentioned any marriage." Elena laughed again, bitter this time. "You would have fired me if I did." Nolan muttered, "Should have." Adrian's head snapped toward him. "Say that again." Nolan went quiet. Adrian returned his attention to Elena, and when he noticed the medicine bottle missing from her bag, his eyes searched the floor until he found it beneath a chair. He bent, picked it up, and read the label. "Tomas Marquez," he said. "Why is he still on these?" Elena felt the humiliation twist into something even more painful. "Because the surgery was delayed. I transferred the funds last year. I never got them." He stared at her. And then, before he could say another word, the front doors opened again. Every head turned. Evelyn Vale entered in cream silk and diamonds, carrying authority the way other women carried handbags. She was older now, but still beautiful in that dangerous, immaculate way that made warmth look like weakness. She had not expected to see Elena there. That much was clear. For 1 second, her composure slipped. Then it came back. "Adrian," she said, as if this were all perfectly manageable. "You left the car waiting." Her gaze moved to Elena, to the coat around her shoulders, to the ring in Adrian's hand. Something cold flashed in her eyes. Vanessa took a desperate step toward Evelyn. "Mrs. Vale, thank God. Please tell him this woman is lying." But Evelyn said nothing. And that silence told Adrian more than words. He turned slowly to his mother. "You found her. Lower your voice. Did you threaten my wife?" Evelyn's expression didn't change. "I protected this family from a scandal you were too emotional to see clearly." Elena shut her eyes for a second. Even now the woman sounded offended, not ashamed. Adrian's jaw tightened so hard, a muscle jumped in his cheek. "Answer me." Evelyn finally looked at Elena directly. "I told her the truth. She had no place in your life. No education, no standing, no understanding of what proximity to power costs. She wanted love. You needed discipline." Elena felt the room tilt. There it was. Not even denial, just cruelty dressed up as logic. "I didn't want your money," Elena said. "No," Evelyn replied coolly. "You wanted to matter." That one landed deep because it had once been Elena's greatest fear. Not that she was poor, that she was forgettable. Adrian stepped between them. "You forged my consent? I spared you embarrassment. You blackmailed a woman whose brother was sick?" Evelyn's eyes hardened. "And if I had not, tonight you'd still be letting sentiment destroy judgment." Adrian laughed once, without humor. "Look around. The only thing destroying judgment tonight is bloodline." Arthur finally burst in, sensing the room slipping away from him. "This has gone far enough. Whatever private arrangement existed between you and this girl, it has nothing to do with my family." Elena turned to him. "It has everything to do with your family." Arthur froze. There it was again, that flicker. Fear. Adrian saw it too. "What are you not saying?" Elena hesitated. This was the moment she had imagined 100 times in the dark. Telling the truth, saying all of it. But every version ended with Tomas paying for her courage. Vanessa noticed the hesitation and jumped in. "She's bluffing." "No," Elena said, voice shaking. "I'm not." She looked at Adrian, and for the first time that night, she let him see how tired she really was. 3 months ago, I was cleaning Nolan's study after one of his parties. He forgot to lock a drawer. I found transfer records, foundation invoices, hospital approvals. Money moved from the Vale Children's Medical Fund into shell accounts connected to Whitmore Holdings. Nolan's face drained. Celeste whispered, "Shut up." Elena kept going. One of those transfers had my brother's case number on it. Tomas's surgery deposit was approved, then reversed.
Not because the hospital ran out of space, because the money was stolen. The ballroom erupted in whispers. Adrian's eyes went black with rage. Arthur thundered, "That is a lie!" "It's not." Elena swallowed. "I copied the files." Vanessa's mouth fell open. "That's why you were in the West Hall. That's why you planted the necklace," Elena shot back. "You found out I knew." The silence after that was sickening, because everyone understood exactly what it meant. Vivian had not humiliated a servant over a necklace. They had tried to destroy a witness before Adrian arrived. Adrian took one step toward Arthur. "Tell me she's lying." Arthur lifted his chin. "You have no proof." Elena looked down, then toward the service corridor. Old Mrs. Dahlia, the cook who had worked for the Whitmores longer than any of them deserved, was standing just beyond the doorway with her hands clasped. She gave the smallest nod. Elena's heart pounded. During the accusation, when Nolan had dumped her bag, Dahlia had quietly retrieved Elena's housekeeping cart key from the sideboard before anyone noticed. Now the old woman slid it across the silver tray she was carrying. A tiny metallic sound in a dead room. Elena picked it up with shaking fingers. "In the linen closet," she said, "behind the lower panel of my cart." Nolan lunged. Adrian's security caught him before he made it 2 feet. The next seconds moved fast.
One guard disappeared down the service hall. Another held Nolan against the wall while he cursed and struggled. Vanessa backed away so quickly she nearly twisted her ankle. Vivian looked like she might faint from rage alone. When the guard returned, he was holding a flash drive wrapped in clear tape. Arthur's shoulders dropped. Adrian took it. "There's a screen in your study?" he asked Arthur. Arthur said nothing. "Good." The whole family and every guest in that ballroom followed Adrian into the study, like witnesses walking into a courtroom. Elena didn't want to go. Every step made her feel exposed in a new way. But Adrian stayed close, one hand light at the center of her back, not controlling, just there. The files opened. Transfers, approvals, reversals. Donations diverted through fake subcontractors. A spreadsheet of children's names marked delayed, postponed, unresolved. Tomas was number 17. 17. Elena stared at the screen until the letters blurred. Not an accident. Not bad luck. Not one more month because these things take time. 17 children had waited while the Whitmores held parties under crystal chandeliers. One guest whispered, horrified, "My God." Then a video file opened. Security footage from Nolan's study. Time-stamped, grainy. Vanessa slipping the necklace into Elena's apron pocket while Elena polished a console table with her back turned. Vanessa made a strangled sound. "I can explain." "Don't," Adrian said. It was so quiet everyone listened harder. "Not because I'm not interested, because explanations are a privilege, and you ran out of them when you let my wife bleed on your floor." Wife. Again. Stronger this time. Not a shock anymore. A claim. Evelyn folded her arms, still trying to salvage control. "Adrian, if you drag this through the press, investors will panic." He looked at her like a stranger. Children lost treatment. And scandal helps no one. Elena turned to Evelyn, something inside her finally snapping after months of swallowing grief whole. "No," she said. "Silence helped you." Evelyn's eyes flashed. Be careful. For what? Elena asked, tears rising now, hot and furious. You already took everything you could. Adrian reached for her hand. She let him take it, but she didn't soften. Not yet. Because he had found her too late. Because love didn't erase a year of hospital chairs and unpaid bills, and Tomas pretending not to hear her crying in the kitchen. Arthur's voice came out rough. Name your number. All of this disappears. Several guests actually recoiled. Elena looked at him and understood something ugly and simple. He really thought everyone had a price. He had lived so long in a world where money turned pain into paperwork that he couldn't imagine a person choosing truth while broke. Adrian's mouth curved into something colder than anger. That offer alone just saved prosecutors time. Arthur turned to Elena instead. If this becomes public, the hospital board freezes everything. Cases are reviewed. Delays happen. Your brother may not survive a delay. The room went still. There it was. The knife. Not at her throat, at Tomas's. Elena's knees weakened. For one awful second, she saw it all. Tomas on the edge of the bed, tying his own shoelaces slowly because bending hurt. Tomas telling her not to miss work. Tomas joking that hospitals smelled like soup and sadness. Arthur saw her hesitation and pressed harder. Walk out now. Take the money. Let adults handle adult mistakes. Adrian Spencer closer to Elena. Look at me. She did. If you expose them, Arthur said, your brother suffers. Adrian didn't break eye contact with her. If you expose them, I put Tomas on my plane tonight. Private team, private surgeon. No board, no delay. Arthur scoffed. You can't guarantee that. Adrian's voice became lethal. I already made the call while you were lying. He held up his phone. For the first time all night, Elena felt the ground return beneath her feet. Still shaking, she looked at the screen one more time. At the rows of children. At number 17. At the families who probably sat exactly where she had sat, believing delay was fate and not theft. Then she wiped her face and turned back toward the ballroom. No, she said. Arthur frowned. No? No deal. She walked out of the study barefoot, Adrian's coat around her shoulders, and every guest followed again, because rich people can smell the exact second a scandal becomes history. In the center of the ballroom, Elena turned to face them all. An hour earlier, she had been on her knees here. Now she stood where Vanessa had stood, under the chandelier, with blood dried at the corner of her mouth and fear still clawing her ribs, but standing. When I started working here, she said, voice unsteady at first, I thought humiliation was the price of survival. I thought if I kept my head down long enough, if I scrubbed hard enough and stayed quiet enough, maybe my brother would live and people like this would forget to hurt me. No one moved. She looked at Vanessa. You laughed while I begged for my job. At Nolan. You kicked my brother's medicine across the floor. At Vivian. You called charity kindness while paying me less than one dinner centerpiece. Then at Arthur. And you stole from sick children. Her voice broke on the last word, but she kept going. Not from numbers, not from accounts, from children. From mothers who stayed awake all night waiting for good news. From fathers who sold wedding rings and tools and cars. From kids who learned not to cry because it upset the adults around them. Several guests lowered their eyes. Phones were still recording. Good, Elena thought. Let them. Tomas had spent a year apologizing for being expensive. That alone deserved witnesses. You wanted me ashamed tonight, she said. But the only people who should be ashamed in this room are the ones who turned pain into profit and called it business. Vanessa's face crumpled first, not with remorse, but with the terror of finally being seen clearly. Nolan started shouting that Elena was manipulative, that she seduced Adrian, that servants lie. No one listened. Vivian tried to leave. One of Adrian's guards blocked the path. Then the front doors opened again. This time it wasn't another socialite. It was investigators. Adrian had not been bluffing. The lead agent walked straight to Arthur Whitmore. "Sir, we need you to come with us." Chaos exploded. Celeste started sobbing. Vanessa screamed for her lawyer. Nolan cursed and tried to twist away from the guard holding him. Vivian shouted about family reputation, as if reputation had not caused this entire disaster. Arthur, red-faced and furious, pointed at Elena like she was the disease and not the diagnosis. And through all of it, Elena felt suddenly, violently empty. Not triumphant. Not yet. Because justice for strangers did not automatically heal the girl inside her, who had spent months wondering if love had abandoned her on purpose. Adrian saw the collapse happen in her eyes. "Lena." She turned to him, and before he could say another word, she slapped him. The room went silent all over again. It wasn't hard, but it was honest. "You should have found me sooner," she whispered. Pain flashed across his face. He accepted it without protest. "I know. I waited for you until waiting became stupid. I know. I hated you because it hurt less than hoping." That one nearly took him apart. "I searched," he said, voice low and rough. "Your number was dead. The apartment was empty. Your landlord said you moved south. My mother had people feeding me lies. I found out 6 weeks ago she'd interfered, and I've been tearing the ground up since." Elena's eyes filled again. "I slept in hospital chairs," she said. "Tomas asked me once if rich people are born knowing they'll be forgiven." Adrian closed his eyes briefly, like that sentence had entered somewhere deep and lodged there. "I can't fix the year they took from you. But if you let me, I'll spend the rest of my life trying to deserve what they almost destroyed." It was not polished. It was not perfect. That made it real. Behind them, investigators were reading rights. Evelyn had gone very still, finally understanding that Adrian was not going to protect her from consequence either. When she spoke, her voice was quieter than before. "I did what mothers do," she said. Adrian turned toward her. "No," he replied. "You did what tyrants do when love threatens control." Evelyn's face changed then. Not softened, just emptied. As if for the first time in her life someone had named her correctly, and she had no elegant answer left. A week later, Tomas was in a private recovery room overlooking the ocean, complaining that the broth tasted like wet paper and asking if billionaires always smelled this expensive. Elena laughed for the first time in months. Really laughed. The surgery had gone well, better than expected. The surgeon said he'd need time, rest, patience. Tomas rolled his eyes and said patience was for people with hobbies. Adrian visited every day, but never assumed, never pushed. He brought crossword books for Tomas, flowers for the nurses, and once an awful vending machine coffee for Elena, just because he remembered that she used to drink them when money was tight and call them burnt courage. He didn't ask her to come home. He asked what home should feel like if they ever built one again. That mattered more than apologies. The Whitmores collapsed fast after the investigation went public. Accounts were frozen. Boards resigned. Friends vanished. The same phones that had recorded Elena's humiliation carried her speech across the country by morning. People were angry. Good. They should have been. Evelyn stepped down from the veil board before she was forced out, though Adrian stripped every layer of quiet power she once used like a weapon. He did not do it with drama. He did it with signatures, which, Elena realized, was exactly how people like her had always been hurt. Only now, for once, paper was on the right side. 3 months later, Adrian asked Elena to meet him at the courthouse where they had married in secret. Rain tapped lightly against the windows. He stood in the same hallway, no entourage this time, no armor except honesty. In his hand was the ring Vanessa had thrown, repaired where it had bent. "I'm not here to ask if you still love me," he said. "I think some part of us will probably always carry that damage and that truth together." Elena said nothing. "I'm here because I loved you privately when it was easy, and I should have fought for you publicly when it was hard." Her throat tightened. Adrian took one slow breath. "If you ever wear this again, I want it to be as my wife, in daylight. No hiding, no protecting my image, no one above you, no one above us." Elena looked at him for a long moment, at the man who had failed her, at the man who had come back, at the man who, for the first time, understood that love without courage is just a prettier form of fear. Then she held out her hand, not because everything was fixed, because some things were worth rebuilding correctly. That afternoon, Adrian Vale walked with Elena Marquez down the courthouse steps where cameras already waited. And when reporters shouted questions, he didn't dodge them. He put his arm around her, looked straight into the storm of flashes and said, "This is my wife, the bravest person I know. And if any room ever asks her to kneel again, it better be prepared to fall." Elena looked at him then, half crying, half laughing, and squeezed his hand. Because once, on a marble floor, they had tried to make her feel small enough to disappear. But some women don't disappear. Some women survive long enough to be seen. And when they finally stand, they take the truth with them. Tell me honestly, if you were Elena, would you have exposed them and risked everything for the truth?